Commissioner, Mr. President, I rise again, I'm afraid, to make the same old hoary speech that I've been making here for several years. And that is, it is my opinion that you do not really understand the concept of banking. President, Commissioner, not for the first time I rise to give you the benefit of my 35 years' experience in financial services, I suspect rather more than the rest of you put together. Let me put you right on how this all started. The problem that we have is a flawed banking system, a fractional reserve banking system, where bankers can lend money that they don't have. And if you go back in time to the United States in the 1850s, that was a capital offence. You could hang for that. All the banks are broke. Bank Santander, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, they're all broke. And why are they broke? It isn't an act of God. It isn't some sort of tsunami. They are broke because we have a system called fractional reserve banking, which means that banks can lend money that they don't actually have. It is a criminal scandal, and it has been going on for too long. And so we have had another disaster. And none of this is actually going to save us from another disaster down the line. It is bound to happen because we have not addressed the real problems, and that is your fractional reserve banking system. The Fed, the Bank of England, the ECB, the Bank of Japan, all completely bankrupt. Let us all blame the retail banks, but it is the central banks where the cancer starts. What we have actually had here is criminal activity by bankers, and not a single banker has been sent to prison. This is extraordinary. Billions of pounds have been taken away from taxpayers, taken away from depositors, bondholders, and yet not a single banker is in jail. We have counterfeiting, sometimes called quantitative easing, but counterfeiting by any other name. The artificial printing of money, which if any ordinary person did, they'd go to prison for a very long time. And yet governments and central banks do it all the time. And plus, underneath all this, we talk loosely, in a rather cavalier fashion, do we not, about deposit guarantees. So when banks go broke through their own incompetence and chicanery, the taxpayer picks up the tab. It's theft from the taxpayer. The sheer effrontery of this is quite astonishing. It's central banks that manipulate interest rates, Commissioner. The state is an institution of theft writ large, holding mountains of junk bonds bought with counterfeit money. Politicians, bankers and lackey bureaucrats should be arraigned at an international financial tribunal in The Hague in the same way as war criminals. One of the great political questions in the United Kingdom when it comes to discussion of the euro is cock-up or conspiracy. Is it a cock-up or was it a conspiracy? Now, the conspiracy theorists say, they knew that this would happen, they knew that this would collapse, they knew that this would bring grief to many countries unfortunate enough and stupid enough to be part of this common currency. And what will happen is, when it collapses, when it catches fire, when it all goes wrong, they can then they being the conspirators, push through an undemocratic system of government on people whether they like it or not. And I think this is the first part of it. This is what we are looking at with this document. It is the first bit of an undemocratic procedure so we can cut ordinary voters, members of the electorate, out of the system. This is a disgrace. This is a disgrace. And central banks are equally culpable, make no mistake. I'd like to see some central bankers in prison. And I call quantitative easing counterfeiting. Printing money is counterfeit. It's illegal. If a private citizen did it, they would go to jail. So let's look into our own hearts. The very unpleasant arrangements that politicians, bureaucrats and central bankers have between themselves at the expense of the taxpayer. Let's end it, and let's end it now. And if you add to that the bubble in the property market was created by criminal fraudulent central bankers printing money and artificially restraining interest rates, as central banks are still doing now. The Fed are still doing it, the ECB, the Bank of Japan, the Bank of England, they're all at it, counterfeiting money. Tax is just about a system where politicians and bureaucrats steal money from their citizens, to squander in the most disgraceful manner. This place is no exception. Fascinatingly, and I really don't know how you manage to keep a straight face when you're talking about tax evasion, the whole Commission and the Commission bureaucracy avoid their taxes. You don't pay taxes like citizens pay taxes. You have all sorts of special deals, composite tax rates, high tax thresholds, non-contributory pension schemes. You are the biggest tax avoiders in Europe, and here you sit pontificating. Well, the message is getting home to the people of the European Union, and I can tell you worse, as the people get your number, it won't be long before they storm this chamber and they hang you, and they'll be right. And until we start sending bankers, and I include central bankers and politicians, to prison for this outrage, it will continue. It's always the little people who get shafted, isn't it? I'm not totally convinced that you really care about them.